the morning. It is Smart Means Business here, and I'm Jerome Paul Stonko. Well, just to remind you that investment and savings have taken center stage, and the ship is actually evolving with the rise in digital migration and also digital transformation across the world, and so is saving. Do not just save, but save for investment. A platform that you can definitely use now is Zabo. This is a platform by Alltex East Africa which says my money, my future. Dial *292#, that is for the MTN subscribers, and follow the prompts. If you do not have an account yet, you have to register with your NIN, and in the next 24 hours, you'll be ready to invest. Zabo says my money, my future. Markets on Zabo do open at 8:15 a.m. and close at 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. The only time that the markets are closed is during weekends and during public holidays, and of which in December the only public holidays that we've got is Christmas and Boxing Day. So that means apart from the weekends, you are ready to invest this particular festive season, my dear ones. Well, of course, Zabo as a platform from Alltex East Africa which says do something new. Your money should predict your future. All right, besides that, now let's get into our SMB Insight this morning. Where does the Insight take us? The Insight takes us about challenges of the East African community. Now, the East African community bloc is a bloc with 7 member states. The 7th was incorporated in this year, that is the Democratic Republic of Congo, and there are some of the challenges that we are facing in here. Now, we're going to be highlighting more from the East African trade, looking greatly at the cost of air transport, amongst the other things, and also the need for a free visa movement within the East African Community region. Of course, if you're to move to Kenya, Tanzania, and you have a national ID of Uganda, you can cross these borders to the DRC, you can cross to Rwanda, Kenya, and Tanzania. That is ideally how efficient it is for the entire region. Now, in our SMB Insight, we do have the Director of Finances, the Private Sector Foundation, that is Dr. Francis Chisirinya, taking us through this particular insight this morning.
The region has already reached the level of what we call a common market, where we expect free movement of goods and free movement of people without any hindrances. And the expectation was that our goods will move from Uganda to Kenya, from Tanzania to Uganda, from Kenya to Uganda, free, without actually being hindered at all. But what we have seen happening over the last years is the introduction of what we call non-tariff barriers. Things like making requirements for standards or health requirements that were not part of what is needed for free flow of goods and services. So this hampers trade. For instance, like in Uganda's case, there is a time when we were trying to trade in a commodity, and we were told, no, there is aflatoxins in your product, therefore it cannot come here, or that you can only sell up to so much. Introduction of quotas that were not part of this initially. So those things hamper the trade within the East Africa. And actually, if you look at the figures, that we are below the potential we can achieve as East Africa in terms of regional trading with each other. So this is a problem that is affecting trade in East Africa. Now, the fourth element that really affects trade within East Africa is the cost of air transport. If you look at the ticket cost between Uganda and, for instance, Kenya, or between Uganda and Tanzania, if you compare the distance and the amount of money we pay in terms of air ticket, these routes are among the most expensive in the world. The reason is that there are things we have not worked on in the region to ensure that air costs, air tickets come down, they become cheaper. So because people cannot move very freely, the cost is high. This hampers flow of goods and services and trade. Along with that is communication also. If people travel, for instance, across the region, they should be able to call call back their offices, call back their families, and also call and trade and cut deals. But I can tell you, if you moved to Tanzania today and wanted to call back home, the cost of a call is so high. I think a minute goes for about 3,000 shillings. That is on roaming, and the data is even much more expensive. So communication is a big problem, and the communication is very important for trade. Now, if it is very expensive, it means you cannot trade as much as you like. There is also the other element in terms of trade, which is a problem. When we had agreed that we can attract, as a region, we can attract tourists from other countries to come and see the attractions in the region. So somebody comes to Kenya, then he moves to Uganda, then he moves to Rwanda, moves to other countries by using what was called the single tourist visa. That is a good thing, and it can make tourism actually move and boom very quickly. But this initiative has not been embraced by all, and we still have hindrances in terms of people who come to visit us as a region. So in the end, because it is so cumbersome for people to go, they are coming to East Africa, he goes to one embassy to get a visa, goes to another, and so on and so forth. It ends up actually affecting the movement of tourists, and it hampers trade, because tourism is trade, and along with it, all the other associated value chains on tourism. The people the hotel bills, because people have to sleep, they have to eat, they have to be transported. The souvenirs they buy. So all of that is actually affected. This potential is not realized because of those hindrances that I've talked about. Yeah, in terms of transport, the proposal, especially from our side, is that the region should invest more in low-cost transport. Means they should invest more in rail services, so that there is interoperability of rail services. That is one. Secondly, where there is opportunity to use Lake Victoria, which connects at least three of our countries, we should use Lake Victoria so that we do have transport costs that are lower. That's crucial. Now, the second thing, in terms of cost of finance, we are encouraging our regional players, companies, and governments to try and make sure that they introduce policies that can make the cost of borrowing low. For instance, we would like the region to save more, right? Because if you save more, it means there is more that you can use for your people to borrow. We're encouraging them to borrow less from the commercial banking system so that it does not crowd out the private sector, and so many other proposals that we actually are making to assist in terms of reducing the cost of borrowing. Now, in terms of reducing the cost of air transport, there is an arrangement that was put in place, which is called the Bilateral Air Services Agreements, the BASA. We would like all of the countries to sign on this Bilateral Air Services Agreement, because if they do, it looks at the entire sky of East Africa as one sky. In fact, the term that they use is an open sky. Now, today, the skies are Uganda has its own sky with its own regulations and taxes and things like. You go to Kenya, the same thing. You go to Tanzania, the same thing. Rwanda. So if we have an open sky, it means that the cost of air tickets will go down, because the taxes will be the same, the regulations will be the same, and all the others. So that open skies initiative should be embraced, should be approved first of all, and then embraced by all the countries. Now, regarding the cost of communication, there is a one area network initiative that was agreed, but unfortunately not all countries are signatories to this one area network. So we need all the countries to embrace the One Air network within the EAC, so that in whatever country you are in, calling could be at the rates of the home calls. If you're in Tanzania and you're on Airtel Uganda, you should be able to call back Uganda on home rates. So that one should happen if we are really going to have the cost be reduced. In terms of the tourists, the single tourist visa should be implemented too. Today, I think it is only Kenya and Rwanda that have this. Now, we would like all other countries to embrace and adopt this single tourist visa. And this helps very, very much in terms of the cost that a tourist pays to visit all our countries. So this will make our work, the trade, much easier within the EAC. Now, on NTBs, the non-tariff barriers, which have really become a hot potato and a difficult thing for trading in East Africa, we encourage our countries to really embrace the spirit of the EAC. The EAC was set up to make its citizens, their lives better. Now, if there are goods that can be sourced from a partner state cheaply for your society, for your population, please accept, so that you are able to have your people enjoy those costs instead of forcing them to pay higher costs because you don't want a member state to supply those goods. So very importantly, we should make sure that NTBs are removed. We build the capacities of the private sector in each of our countries to overcome their challenges so that they are able to compete properly. The reason why some of these things are introduced is to protect what somebody calls the local industry, the local producers, the local whatever. Now, if you don't give them the capacity to become competitive and better, you are going to do this for the rest of your life. But what do we need to make sure that they are competitive is what we do. They need technology, they need better seeds, they need the costs, they need to borrow money cheaply. Make those things. Sometimes it is also on the capacity, their own skills. Skill them. Then they will be able to compete with the others. So the country will not be affected because my cost is low, another country's cost is low, therefore my people will not be able to trade effectively. I'll lose jobs, I'll lose revenue. That thing should not happen. So our countries must really focus on building competitiveness of their societies, remove the barriers, enhance their skills. That is the best way we can have the region reduce these issues of non-tariff barriers. But we also encourage the politicians to talk amongst each other, so that these things are able to be eliminated. Instead of not talking and then there are all these barriers, you can't trade with another country, the border is closed and things like that. And when the issue actually can be handled by talking. So that should be done. Lastly, we also, as the private sector, we lose so much when a country just wakes up in the morning and says, now you're not bringing in goods. If there is any reason at all which you think there are no reason, but if the country feels that there is a reason at all to stop products from flowing freely, notify the other countries and say, in 2 weeks' time, we will not allow such and such a product to come to a country. But today it's just immediate. People just know when they arrive at the border with their trucks, and then you have miles and miles of trucks that cannot enter another country because they have stopped a particular item. So that causes costs and losses to the private sector. So countries must also look at this kind of thing to improve the trade relations so that the East African community can really have better free flow of goods and services. The biggest element that we should do is, as I said, let us first of all ensure that the protocols we sign, the common market protocol, free movement of people and goods, that should be implemented. Let every country embrace this and allow goods to move freely. Now, if we get to that level, then we are going to enhance the trade between the regions. The rest of the things are parts of, but the big thing is appreciating that this was the spirit of trading is the most important.
A pickup line from there is that governments need to come together to harmonize peace within the region to ensure that the players, whether those from the public sector or those from the private sector, can engage in the trade and, of course, also reinforce cooperation that will lead to economic stability within the region. Well, of course, as you can see, the ongoing crisis in the DRC, which has caused attention from the entire region, and for all the presidents to work hand in hand together to ensure that there is peace and stability in there. Of course, today in the press review early in the morning, we had a report regarding the fact that there would be a delay of the East African Community one single currency, something that is also entirely targeting boosting trade within the region. But if we are to look at how trade is within the region, the issue to do with trade barriers has to be eliminated to ensure that the traders freely cross over different countries to contain and maintain their business transactions across the borders of their different countries within the East African Community region, so that trade will definitely grow and the economy at large will be growing tremendously and creating opportunities for all those into the value chain within the East African Community region. So that is something that we definitely wish to have, and it's something that the entire EAC region is working upon to making sure that unity and prosperity is top-notch priority. Well, that is it for this particular segment of the SMB Insight. After the break, we shall be returning with more. Stick around with me. I'm still here till the hour of 10 a.m. this morning.